The meeting began in silence but quickly gained momentum. The first topic was the demon sighting in the Black Mountain. Ethanil, the residing head with divinity, stated that this was a more serious matter than the demon appearing in the capital. They emphasized that each school must issue orders or cooperate with the church, and mages needed to be dispatched to suspicious regions. The matter was resolved with surprising ease, as no families opposed Ethanil's opinion. However, there was still much to discuss: which schools would dispatch mages, what countermeasures to implement in demon-prone areas, and what revisions were needed to dungeon and demon hunting laws. For nearly 4 hours, the round table buzzed with debates and decisions. Throughout it all, he remained silent, reserving his right to speak only 3 times. Finally, the chairperson announced that they would adjourn for a short break. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on him. He had rushed to the meeting like a madman, desperate not to be late, and now he was utterly drained, both of mana and stamina. Yet, despite the exhaustion, his appearance remained flawless. Deculein's traits really are annoyingly impressive, he thought with a hint of frustration. He stepped outside to clear his head and spotted a petite man with brown hair pacing near the exit. It was Alan, who ran over to him with tears welling in his eyes. Alan apologized profusely for being late, explaining that they wouldn't let him in once the meeting had started. He assured Alan that he was fine and told him to spare his worries. Internally, he admitted that he could no longer see Alan as innocent. There was definitely something off about his identity, but he couldn't figure out why or for what purpose. A quote from a famous movie in his previous world came to mind: "Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer." He decided it was better to keep a close eye on Alan. He told Alan to stand next to him from now on, and Alan nodded obediently. He resolved to uncover what Alan really was, no matter what. The 30-minute break passed quickly. While the other heads retreated to their waiting rooms to exchange opinions and broker deals, he stayed with Alan, doing nothing else. When the break ended, he returned to the round table, taking his seat with Alan standing beside him. The next topic was far more contentious: the Blood Shroud Sorcerer. He knew this wouldn't be resolved as easily as the previous topic. Woojin, the head of the Vajrad family, compared the Blood Shroud race to cockroaches, claiming they were breeding by secretly laying eggs within society and corroding their lands. Ethanil, the head of the Braun family, countered by asking what evidence Woojin had for such claims, pointing out that they lacked the means to differentiate Scarletborn from other races. Woojin argued that they could invent a method, using their blood as a basis, and insisted that they must eradicate the Scarletborn as soon as possible, using the Imperial Magic Tower. Ethanil sharply rebuked Woojin for using the word eradicate, and their opinions clashed from the start. Woojin continued, stating that the Scarletborn were recognizing one another and gathering, and he was certain they had a leader. He warned that they didn't know what the Scarletborn were scheming. Ethanil retorted, saying it is speculation. In the novel, the Scarletborn, or the Red Box, were a unique clan. Their existence was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but many among them had developed extraordinary talents. There was indeed someone, a genius or prodigy, who united and commanded them from the shadows. According to the game's plot, the leader was a messiah, akin to Buddha or Jesus. The reason to eradication of Red Box because Red Box were the wizard's Achilles' heel. Woojin's voice rose sharply as he addressed the room, his tone filled with disgust. He questioned how anyone could not be repulsed by the thought of a hidden Scarletborn leader gathering their forces and potentially plotting something in secret. He criticized the lukewarm response from her, comparing it to the indifference mages had shown 60 years ago, which had led to the blood of countless mages being spilled. His words hung heavily in the air, leaving the room in silence. Glithian, who had been observing Deculein since earlier, finally spoke up. He turned to Deculein and asked for his opinion, noting that the Yukline family was an established house that had spearheaded the war against devils since ancient times. All eyes turned to Deculein. Internally, Deculein reflected on his perspective as someone from modern-day Earth. He had seen the consequences of ethnic discrimination and knew that hatred fueled by ignorance always led to unnecessary suffering. Even setting aside those reasons, he believed that oppressing the Scarletborn wasn't the right path. He resolved to delay their oppression as much as possible, not only to prevent needless bloodshed but also for the sake of the future main quest. After all, he knew that the true enemy of this world wasn't the Scarletborn. Deculein spoke calmly, acknowledging that the Scarletborn had indeed been their enemy in ancient times. However, he pointed out that if one examined the history books closely, Much of the conflict had been based on misunderstanding. He referenced the Woojin witch incident 237 years ago, where Woojin had been falsely accused of being a witch, sparking widespread persecution and leading to the massacre of countless Scarlet-born. This had started a cycle of endless bloodshed. He also mentioned the incident from 4 years ago that Vathan had brought up, explaining that it had been a political matter stemming from the discovery of a mana stone mine in Scarlet-born territory. Vathan scoffed at Deculein's explanation, incredulous that a member of House Yukline would speak in such a way. He reminded everyone that House Yukline had killed the most Scarlet-born and had even taken the mine for themselves back then. He insisted that the Scarlet-born were undoubtedly a bloodline of demons, and that House Yukline, as devil hunters, should know this better than anyone else. Deculein responded firmly, clarifying that it was the Yukline tradition to hunt devils, not the Scarlet-born. Vathan, his voice filled with frustration, shouted that the Scarlet-born were devils. His outcry echoed through the hall, causing the round table to ring. His words carried the potential to incite another massacre, and a heavy silence fell over the room. Deculein then posed a pointed question to Vathan, asking if he was willing to bear the responsibility of his words. He warned that the very person who incited such hatred might just be the devil himself. Deculein ended his statement there, leaving the heads of the family staring at him in surprise. The first meeting concluded without a clear resolution, and the topic was pushed back to the next day. Glithian expressed his regret at having to part ways with Sylvia until the next meeting, to which Sylvia responded by telling him to stop exaggerating, as the meeting was only the next day. Glithian lamented the Rosary Hotel's rule of only one person per room and asked if she would be all right on her own. Sylvia brushed off his concern, stating that girls her age always slept in separate rooms from their dads. Glithian reminded her that Rosary had a high concentration of mana and could cause various magical phenomena at night, advising her to read the hotel rules. Sylvia assured him she knew and planned to stay in her room, telling him to stop worrying so much. The night rules for the Rosary Hotel of Burke's 4th District were as follows. 1. If you find an open door while walking around the hallway, never look inside or enter the room. 2. If someone knocks on your door, do not open it. You should also never answer it verbally. 3. There have been cases where bodies have been found in the bathroom. Do not panic and simply close the door. 4. Rosary Hotel is on the 1st floor of the building. Upon the appearance or discovery of stairs, do not climb up or down. 5. Once you lie on your bed, please refrain from walking until morning. Otherwise, you might be transported to a different space at any moment. 6. Making noise in the hallway is not allowed. The use of magic is also prohibited. Sylvia sat in her room skimming the rules. She thought to herself that the rules sounded like something meant to scare toddlers. She figured she'd be fine as long as she slept in her bed like always. Deciding to sleep, she lay down on her bed, with her hawk, Quickstone, perched quietly by her bedside. She bid it goodnight and closed her eyes, falling into a deep slumber almost instantly. According to the clock, she slept for about 3 hours before waking up with a dry throat. She rose and grabbed a cup of water from the shelf. After quenching her thirst, she turned around and froze. She wasn't in her room anymore. Instead, she stood in the middle of an endless hallway. Panic set in as she realized the space had suddenly changed into a corridor. She wondered if she had done something wrong. Chills clawed their way up her neck, and her back stiffened. The air felt heavy and oppressive, as if the hallway itself was alive and watching her.